Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Chiropractic Student Podcast. Today we are joined by Dr. David Serio. Thank you so much for joining us today, David.
It's my pleasure, Lewis. Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for listening as well.
It's really cool because I picked up your book about a year ago and read it, and it was really amazing. And I'll have to be honest, I didn't know who you were, but you managed to get loads of people who are really cool to contribute into that book. And it was such a great idea. And I just wanted to say forefront, thank you for doing that, because I know a lot of students like myself who have read that and felt truly inspired to go on and read more books as well about the 33 principles and just in general chiropractic. So thank you for that.
Lewis, you're welcome. Actually, the idea of the book was to kind of create a bridge for people that didn't really understand the philosophy so much. And it wasn't to be like a deep philosophical book. I wanted to give a broad perspective on the principles from different chiropractors. So I think it really served its purpose, and getting messages like from people from you just makes me realize that it was needed. It was filling a gap in the profession. So thank you. And anyone listening to this, if you want the book, I'll give it to you for free on a digital format. So just you can send me an email. I'll leave my email at the end and I'll send you the digital format. You can download it. So.
Wow. Thank you so much. That's incredible. I really appreciate that. I'll pop your email down below then.
Yeah, sure.
To kick this off, can we have just a little bit about your background, maybe where you went to university, how long you've been out for, that kind of stuff?
Sure. So chiropractic for me, Lewis, was a second career. So I grew up in the United States. Most people know New York. I grew up about 30 minutes from New York City. And it was interesting because my only interaction with chiropractic until I was an adult was one time when I was playing American football. I was about 15, and my friends all went to a chiropractor, but they couldn't explain it to me. They're like, just come with us. And what I saw kind of scared me, honestly. So I was like, never will I ever go to a chiropractor. And they couldn't explain it to me. So that was it.
Yeah.
Then I went on with a career. I went skiing one weekend and I couldn't walk on Monday. And basically I thought like, okay, get injected or go to a chiropractor. That was my mindset at the time. So to make a long story short, I went to a chiropractor and immediately I was like, this is my purpose. I don't even know what it is. I didn't even feel better. I just felt like this connection to something deep. Yeah. For the first time in my life after the adjustment. And I said, this is it. So within about 6 months, I ended up at Life College, where I met my first mentor, Dr. Sid Williams. He was the founder of Life College. Then I met my second mentor, Fred Barge. And then while I was at Life College, I heard Reggie and Arno Burnier. And there was something different, more clear about them in the philosophy. So I basically asked them both, where do I get this philosophy? And they told me, you need to go to Sherman. So at the time, Sid was being removed from being president of Life College, and everything kind of came together. And I ended up at Sherman College, where I met my next mentors, Reggie Gold, Tom Gilardi, Joe Strauss, Irene Gold. And that's where Donny Epstein, and that's where actually the house I lived in, Lewis, was owned by Donny Epstein. So
the name dropping now, I love it.
Those are all my mentors, personal mentors. And I'm so grateful to be able to have been in the right place at the right time, to be mentored by them and friends with all of them. It lasted me forever in my career. I think about them every day. Pennacchio was one of my big mentors at Sherman. And so that's kind of my history of my studying. So when I graduated, I really felt this call to be on a mission. So long story short, I ended up in Buenos Aires. It wasn't that I thought this was an amazing place. Life just brought me here. I actually didn't even really like the city so much when I came, but I was like, I'm going to go on an adventure and bring chiropractic to a place where it really doesn't exist at this point.
Yeah.
And just to see what happens in a place where no one really knows, what this is.
What happened?
So now I'm 22 years later.
And are you still in Buenos
later.
Aires?
Yeah, I came here in 2000.
Yeah.
First couple of years were brutal. Like I ended up sleeping on the floor of my practice. And Reggie actually, I was literally broke, Lewis. Like the country exploded. I had no idea, even though I had all these great mentors coming to South America, I didn't even speak the language. So I basically got my butt whipped, like all life lessons that I needed to learn. So the country was in a serious crisis. So I ended up sleeping on the floor of my practice to keep going. And Reggie Gold was coming through to do a seminar, and he lent me some money. And he said, you really want this? Like, you really want to stay there? And I said, Reggie, you were supposed to come here, but life brought you somewhere else. So I feel like I'm continuing your legacy. That's one of the reasons I came to Buenos Aires, was to continue what he was supposed to do. And his original thing was he was going to come to Buenos Aires. So he ended up in New York.
Oh.
So I said, Reggie, I'm destined to be here. And he lent me some money. And that got me through like this really tough time. And then from there, I figured things out and exploded.
What? Okay. Was this straight from university that you?
Yes, brother. I waited about 9 months for a friend of mine from Life College. He was still finishing up his last semester. So I worked in a restaurant just to save some money.
Yeah.
We came here, and I had no idea what I was getting into. I had a few contacts. They weren't very helpful. One of my best friends from Sherman, when I came here, he's like, Dave, I'm leaving Argentina. So I'm thinking like he was going to be here, and he's like, I'm out of here. The country's collapsing. I'm leaving. Oh, so dude. I literally showed up, and he was getting on a plane to come back. I'm like, are you serious? He's like, the country's collapsing. So like when I showed up, this country was about to go through a huge collapse. So.
Okay. So how, I'm trying to think of a good question. The journey that you went on then, so the first few years you came straight out of university, and it was hard starting that practice. What are some really crucial lessons that you learned in that process?
Beautiful question. So number one, Lewis, the chiropractic, I think there's three main things that kept me going. And I'm going to share some lessons there, but I want to share first what kept me going, because I would have never learned the lessons if I didn't keep going.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I have to give you a little context.
Please do.
My mom lives in Paradise in Florida, and my family is in a very good financial status in the States, but they didn't help me at all. And I'm grateful for that they didn't help me. And also, I could have been living in paradise, but I knew that this was the path, right? So if I didn't have these three key things, I would have got on a plane and went back to the United States. And I know I could have been successful there. So
how did you know that was your path? Was it a gut feeling?
Because of this one thing.
Okay. Sorry.
If you make your vision bigger than yourself, life, all of the riches of life are there. Lewis, it's easy to get stuck in our ego and ourselves. But I truly believe, Lewis, if you were called to be a chiropractor, and you in your case, we wouldn't be talking if you weren't called to be a chiropractor, Yeah. It's one thing if you choose this, it's one thing if it chooses you. And I believe I was chosen to be a chiropractor. So if you make your vision bigger than yourself, it's going to put you in situations that are not comfortable, but that's where the magic happens. So I knew that I had to get in something that was so uncomfortable that, and make the vision so big that the magic would happen and the gifts would come. But I knew I was going to go through hard times, but I didn't think it was going to be that hard. It was much harder than I thought.
Yeah.
But so what kept me going was the vision of bringing chiropractic to the world, the philosophy of personal growth. When I was in chiropractic school, I discovered Tony Robbins and that whole personal growth scene. And without that also, and the foundation of the philosophy of chiropractic, I would have gotten on a plane and left.
And in terms of the foundation of chiropractic, what sort of things helped you understand that to the level that you do today?
Okay.
What was that process like? Like, was it speaking to people? Was it observing? Was it reading books? What was it?
Okay. Let me just go back to that last question just to give you some of the lessons in there. Okay.
Okay. Yes. Sorry. Yeah.
So the first thing for anyone listening, you know, people think you just go to a country where there's no chiropractic and it's so easy, you open a practice. It's not, you know, it's not easy at all. Everything has its challenges, whether you're in a country with chiropractic or without, it's not as easy as opening up. Just to give you an example, Lewis, to rent a space here, I had to have someone sign a paper that they owned a house equal in value to that space. When you don't know people, how do you get that to happen, right? So my first lesson was there's always going to be challenges no matter what, and you got to embrace those challenges, and those challenges will help you grow and evolve. That's the first big lesson. The second big lesson is always have mentors. Without my mentors, no way I could have done this. Huge. And the third one is, if you serve from a place of universal principle, you're unbeatable. Just to give an example, we have chiropractic principles, cause and effect.
Yeah.
So if you understand that, for me, that's equal to give and receive. You know, if I'm the cause of putting energy out there, the effect is the energy will come back. So if you start to live your life by those principles, there's no way you can fail. You're unstoppable. Maybe the time frame is different than you thought.
But it will come full circle.
It will come. Yes, brother. Yes.
You've lived through it, and you live to tell the tale, and you can say this from experience. And those are really great lessons for us. How did you stay so strong in your beliefs when it was dark times, when you thought that it was not going so well?
Great question. Okay, I have a story about this, but let me answer the last question first.
Yeah,
okay? Let me answer the last question first. So I believe first, like something you did, you found a chiropractor that you wanted to model yourself after, and you were knocking on his door. I want to work with you. That's the best thing to do. Find chiropractors that you want to be like and be mentored by them, be a part of their group, whatever. Because I had all my mentors that were some, in my opinion, some of the greatest chiropractic philosophers in the profession, maybe ever, but none of them were in practice at the time. And also, so I couldn't say, I want to come and work with you. I want to be a part of your practice and stuff. So for me, that was a little bit of a disability in, you know, if I had a mentor in South America that was in practice, I would have, you know, that would have helped me tremendously. I wouldn't have suffered like I did in terms of, I probably would have learned the lessons, but also it would have taken a lot of that, of the suffering part away, you know? So I think that's number one. Find great mentors that you want to be like. Every day, read chiropractic. I've read Stephenson's. I'm reading it again for like the 55th time, you know? Like, I never stop reading. I don't care if I read a book. Stephenson's, my goal is to read it 300 times because every time I read it, I get more. And do stuff like this. Listen to chiropractors, take in chiropractic, be chiropractic.
And are there any specific texts like Stephenson's text?
I personally have my favorites. So
Which of those?
Stevenson's Beyond is my favorite. I love all the books by Strauss, but I would say there's the top three that I love from him: Refined by Fire, Chiropractic Philosophy 1 and 2, and Case Management for the Straight Chiropractor, Strauss. I love Simon Senzon, a good friend of mine. I love his work.
Yeah.
And Rob Sinnott, I think, has great work out there as well.
I read that Rob Sinnott's The Chiropractic Philosophy one. That was one of the first books I read that opened my eyes to philosophy, really. So I can recommend that one as well, which is cool.
Yeah. And I think, obviously, I'm going to plug my own book. I think 33, if you haven't read it, is a good book. But I want to share a story, Lewis, about that question you asked. So one day when I was in practice, so many days I would think about leaving. And, I would have friends call me all the time. My family come back to the US. And this one particular day, I was really having a hard time. And this chiropractor, it just so happened that there was a chiropractor from Europe that's married to an Argentine woman. And he came in my practice that day. They were here on vacation. Mm-hmm. And he says to me, this brand of chiropractic, this model, you need to give it up. You're obviously not making money. You need to go into the medical model of chiropractic. And I was just basically like, there's the door. Have a nice day. Leave. Leave. And at that point in time, I realized what keeps me going is really the foundation of chiropractic, the principles. They're infallible for me. And if you understand how to put them in action, they work. Chiropractic works. You'll always have success. It might take a little longer than you were prepared.
To get to that level of congruency with your profession, I'm hoping it didn't happen overnight for you. What was that process like? Did you have times where you were like, oh, I'm not too sure? And during that learning process, how was that for you? Or did you know just all the time?
Okay, so interesting question. When I went to Life College, I started to feel like there's something bigger than this. The thing is, for me, it was there was a lot of anti-medicine stuff and not enough pro-chiropractic stuff for me. So when I heard Reggie and Arno, I was like, this, I don't know, it just resonated so deeply within me. So
you should
honestly,
resonated. You should.
Yeah. That's a new word. I know.
Reggie resonated.
It resonated. Thank you, brother. Yeah. Yes. That just resonated so much within me that honestly it was a process, obviously, to learn, but I never questioned any of it because I questioned things to learn, but it just resonated so much with who I was that I couldn't imagine from that day on. The first time I heard Reggie, I started saying, I can't imagine for me. Now, maybe for someone else, it's different. For me, I would rather not be a chiropractor than prostitute the principles of chiropractic. I mean, it's not part of my being. I couldn't do it.
I think it's really handy to know, because I think a lot of people do know that the body heals from within, and they're starting to understand the chiropractic principles, but there is a lot of fight back from like society in general, just government and medical schemes. And how do you stay strong against those that oppose you?
So give me a little context, Lewis, because let me share something else. It's hard for me to understand the context of a question from a country where maybe the regulations are real different. So give me like a couple examples so I can answer the question a little better.
So at the moment,
Yes.
our Chiropractic Council, the General Chiropractic Council in the United Kingdom, are pushing everyone to become evidence-based and to slowly move away from philosophical vitalistic chiropractic into mechanistic and integrate soft tissue techniques and move away from the specificity of the adjustment and more into what some might say physiotherapist roles and physical
Musculoskeletal.
exactly musculoskeletal stuff. There must be somewhere along your way where there's been some sort of fight with that. How have you stayed so strong in the way that you are?
Okay, so that's a great question. And I did see yesterday I've been watching your posts and stuff. So I have kind of cleared the context of that. So the thing is this, the first thing you have to realize, and this is really important for everyone listening, if we're not donating back time and energy and money to the profession, literally, we could be wiped out in terms of legally being able to practice somewhere. Okay, so the first thing, Lewis, is you have to realize that there's a reality here. If someone sets a law that makes what we do illegal, that's a pretty tough thing to break through, you know? And so the first key in this, Lewis, is that I think we need to all realize that all the chiropractors that oppose that need to band together and have political pull, right? So there are groups around the world. For example, there's schools we can support. You know, there's tons of groups around the world that we can support. I don't want to go through all of them here, but there are a lot of groups around the world that we can support that will support our right to practice chiropractic in the way we want. So the first thing is people have to realize if they want something to be done, they have to donate time, money, and action. Otherwise, if the other group is doing it, we could literally get squashed. And that's why principal chiropractic around the world typically has a lot of problems, because people aren't donating back, you know, time, money, and energy.
I think a lot of students as well feel, because a lot of the educational bodies at the moment push the evidence-based stuff because they kind of have to, they're being told to. And so it's hard for students and new grads to speak up against that and speak from a principled place. Speaking from experience, it gets you in trouble. It really does get you in trouble when you question these things. And it's a hard thing. And that's kind of why I did the podcast and why I assume you do your fight for chiropractic in the book. It's to try and give that energy and the time to the profession. Is there anyone in particular that you think is really worth looking into if someone wants to become a more principled chiropractor?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. First of all, Lewis, think about this. There's strength in numbers, right? So the thing is, if all of the chiropractors that are principled start getting together, that's a powerful thing. And I want to share a story about this because it'll help some people. When I was about 12 years in practice, chiropractors started coming to me and asking me to teach. And I was teaching seminars, but I didn't want to have an associate. I wanted to practice by myself, all this stuff. So long story short, one day I woke up to this idea to form a tribe of chiropractors, a team. Mm-hmm. So when chiropractors started coming to me that I liked, we started to form a team, and we started to grow and grow and grow organically since 2013. And now we're a team of almost 60 people. But I want to share what happened with that. The first group that came on our team, were called Vita Chiropractic, was from Chile. Chile was a country at that point very much like England in the context of chiropractic.
Yeah.
Once we formed the team, we got 12 really strong chiros that started crushing it in Chile, it started to break down all the walls of this is the only way to practice chiropractic. And if you're not doing this, you're doing it wrong. So it's not that we haven't been receiving attacks, but now we have more numbers and we have more economic power and we have more people coming into this brand of chiropractic. It created a massive shift. So I really believe, Louis, that besides supporting some schools and organizations that are politically supporting what we're doing, that one of the main ways we can really impact our countries is to start forming big teams of people that are in the same vision.
It made me think of what you said earlier. Instead of fighting against that, we should be providing more of an army for what we stand for. That literally just, you got the cogs turning just then. And
Buckminster Fuller, he had a great quote, and it said, "You can't fight an old paradigm. You have to create a new one." We've been fighting in this profession, brother, since Didi's time. And where's it gotten us? Nowhere. We need to create a new paradigm for ourselves, and obviously make sure, though, at the same time, that we're legally allowed to practice the way we want to practice. And that's key, because if you can't legally practice the way you want to practice, nothing else matters.
Yeah. I love it. You speak with such passion, and you can tell that you are very, very much in love with chiropractic and what you do. And I love it so much. I've got an interesting question. If you were to stumble across a student, maybe after a seminar that you've spoken at one day, and they're looking very puzzled in the corridor, and if you could say something to them, what would you say?
I would say what Dr. Sid said to me one time, and he would say it at his seminars. There's a big difference between you being in chiropractic or chiropractic being in you. If you're in chiropractic, every challenge that comes up, because you're going to have challenges. We are totally different from everything else. It's very easy to lose your way. But when chiropractic is within you, you'll never lose your way. So it's like when it vibrates in your cells, you're going to love it more and more and more and want to do more and more. One of my mentors, the founder of Sherman College, 83, 84 years old, we can be on the phone for an hour and he's like, "Can you go another 4 hours?" "Yeah, let's go." And he's like more in love and more passionate than ever before, because when chiropractic is within you, it grows within you, and it's infinite. It's infinite.
Is chiropractic in you, or are you in chiropractic? Okay, I think I've got the headline for the podcast. That's great.
That's from Dr. Sid Williams. That's not my phrase. That's Dr.
Okay,
Sid Williams.
I'll give that credit to Sid.
Yeah.
Have you got any? I think I've got such amazing information, and thank you so much for your time today. Have you got any parting information? Anything you'd like to say? Are people happy to come? Are you happy for people to come and visit or have a chat with you? That kind of stuff.
Anytime. So you can get in touch with me in a few different ways. I have a personal website called drdavidvita.com. Yeah. drdavidvita.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I will give you a link to my book. I'll send it to you, Louis, for a free 33.
Thank you.
You can download the book there. Anyone that wants to download it, feel free to share it. And there it is. And if you ever want to talk to me about, being a part of our team or anything that I can help you with, feel free. I am hoping to be in Spain within the next year and a half to do some seminars. So I'll definitely let you know.
That would be amazing. And thank you so much for everything you're doing and have done for the profession so far. I look forward to seeing everything else that comes in the future. I love it. And again, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you. Keep in touch. Anytime you wanna contact me, keep in touch. Thanks, Louis.
So much.